where you send your questions into me, Father Rob Baldwin of St. James Episcopal Church in Piqua, Ohio, and I answer them here for you on the air. You will notice that I am not alone today, but instead with me is the Reverend Melody Williams from Trinity Episcopal Church in Troy, Ohio, which is our sort of neighbor church right down the road. And I have to say, one of the great things about being an Episcopalian priest is that you get to know everybody, and you oftentimes know them for a long period of time. And so even though Melody has been at Trinity for how long?
4 years.
4 years. I've known her like 12 years because she and I lived together, lived in the same house. We both lived in the city of Columbus before we all came out here to Western Ohio. And she graciously was press ganged into coming and sitting in on today's episode. The question that I received is from a woman named Carmela. This is actually a question I received while I was at our diocesan outdoor adventure camps. It's a question from a youth who asked me what I thought hell was like. So, Melody being an expert on all things diabolical, I thought I would ask her what she thought, her thoughts about what hell is like.
Big question.
I'm sprung on her.
Yeah, just all of a sudden I walk in the door and here I am. I often don't worry about hell and think about what it's like because I see so many circumstances in which, I see people living a hell now. For me, hell is any kind of separation of God, if it's now or in the afterlife. And I figure in the afterlife, God takes care of whatever our relationship is when we die. So I tend to think more about the hell that is happening now. And the genocides, people who are starving in our own backyards, and we ignore them. People that don't have the money to put a roof over their head. Children who go to bed hungry. These are all signs of being separated from God, and they're signs of hell. And we can take lessons about what our life might be separated from God by looking at how we're separated from God now. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
That's really close to mine. Actually, the key phrase there, which I really liked, and actually was in my mind is as I sort of imagine what hell is like, is separation from God. So I know the classical model is always some sort of fiendish torture involving fire and pitchforks and sort of clever, sinister ways of hurting people. But really, we hurt now. People suffer from chronic pain, torture, depredation, injury, and we persevere many times because we have the presence of God with us. And I think the worst thing that I can imagine in my own limited human imagination is to be in a place where we no longer have that connection with God, that we were utterly and completely severed from God, and I don't care what you do to me at that point. It's just in the same way that I feel like I can always turn to God during times of extreme stress, physical, emotional, spiritual, and find comfort and rest there. The idea that I would ever be in a place where I could not have that connection with God forever seems to my mind to be the worst thing that I could possibly imagine. That would, in my mind, seem to be the bottom, and everything else is just sort of ancillary from there. And I really believe, although again, I've not been there, that in that same way that Jesus experiences all of the really terrible things that happen to people as part of his incarnation, that in that moment where he goes, my God, why are you forsaking me? That he is saying, I'm not going to, even briefly, and that's what harrowing of hell we talk about sometimes, to know what be severed from God completely, even for a brief period of time, and experience that is, I think, the ultimate suffering that he endured on the cross. But in a way that I believe that he did it all, that he also may have done that. Anyways, want to say anything while I got you on here about Trinity Episcopal Church for those people who are watching here in Piqua but may have friends or relatives in the Troy area?
Trinity Episcopal Church is a small to medium-sized congregation. Our focus is very much on outreach and helping others and building a spiritual community. They're a community of prayer, a community of living in the footsteps of Jesus, in the old phrase, walking the talk. So it's a very active congregation as a result. A lot of fun to be with, people who laugh a lot and know about helping others, which reminds me of the story about hell, the one about the spoons. Do you know that story?
No, this one. Go ahead.
Okay, it's a great story. I forget who dies. Someone dies and meets up with Peter at the gates. And this person gets to have a choice as to whether or not they want to live in heaven or hell. So they go and visit hell. And hell is a great big banquet table with all of this food on it. Okay? Huge amount of food. Banquet that you can't even imagine. You go, well, this is pretty cool. Yeah, I could get into that. But what was interesting about it is that they had, the people around the table that were living in hell had these very long spoons. And the spoons were so long that they couldn't get into their umbrella and feed themselves. And they were around this banquet table starving because the spoons were too big. They couldn't get the spoons into their mouths. So he thought, well, that's kind of interesting, but maybe I could get around the spoon thing. So anyway, they go and visit heaven. And same thing, big, huge banquet, same picture. All of these people sitting around the table with the same size spoons. And in heaven, what they were doing with the spoons, instead of trying to feed themselves, they were feeding others. And that's where our connection with God is, taking care of one another and loving one another.
Well, thank you for your time here, and it's always great to have company here on Ask Father Rob. You can send your questions to me, Father Rob Baldwin, care of St. James Episcopal Church, 200 West High Street, Piqua, Ohio, 45356. You can email them to me at stjamespiqua@yahoo.com. Or, of course, you can always just stop by here each and every Sunday. Our service times are 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings, and you're welcome to come early or stay late and chat with me during those times as well. Thank you, Melody, for being a part of this. We're going to get some lunch ourselves, speaking of eating. And great seeing you again. I look forward to seeing you here each